Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss Labour's claims that the Conservatives could announce their budget next week and then very quickly announce the election in order to put Labour on the back foot with their spending plans. I'd also like to discuss in a bit more detail why the Tories really wouldn't want to delay the election too long again anyway. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So I discussed in a video yesterday how the Tories may be planning on adopting some Labour tax policies in order to screw over Labour's spending plans. So just briefly, to avoid repeating myself too much, the way it works is this. Labour know they need to boost spending in order to turn the economy around, but they're shackled by the way the public thinks the economy works, so they have to stick to all sorts of fiscal rules which aren't entirely helpful. So they need to raise capital spending without the spectre of tax rises or too much borrowing. The obvious solution is to close down tax breaks. So Labour have been working out their spending plans on the basis of raising tax revenues, but not by putting up taxes, but just by getting more people to pay what they're supposed to, removing tax breaks. But the Tories have hinted at closing some of these tax breaks off themselves before Labour get the chance in order to cut taxes. That would leave Labour unable to use their original plans to close those tax breaks off for more spending unless they reverse those tax cuts, which might be unpopular. And according to the Financial Times, Labour are on high alert for the budget being announced this Wednesday, followed by a very swift general election announcement. So how credible is this? Well, it would actually be a very good strategy for the Tories to adopt. It should be really obvious to anyone paying attention. The polls aren't going to suddenly swing the other way. The Tories have been campaigning hard since the new year, and Labour are they're not just maintaining a poll lead, actually they're extending it with most pollsters. The Tories will also know that despite the hype that they're going to throw at these tax cuts of theirs, what they're proposing is at best a few quid extra in people's pockets. And they also know that although they're putting a lot of emphasis on the taxes they're cutting, other taxes are going up. People are not going to feel more comfortably off, right? David Gork, who's a former Tory MP, Tory minister, in fact, has said that he doesn't think we're on for a spring election because Sunak would be better off waiting and hoping something turns up. But this would be crazy. It's a strategy based on the notion that something good happening, if you leave it, is more likely than something bad happening. But there's nothing good on the horizon. So you really will be hoping for an unexpected miracle. But we know that there are bad things for the government to come. Like recently I discussed the way that with each passing month, more people are being hit by higher mortgage payments, which is a bit of a problem when the Conservatives rely on homeowners for votes, as well as more elderly people are dying. And it's a terrible thing to have to discuss the death of ordinary people, don't hurt anyone, as part of an election strategy. But just due to the way the Tories operate, we have to. The Tories deliberately target elderly people almost exclusively. And so this matters. With every month that passes, the Tories are losing a lot of their voters. But also, more people are coming of age to vote as well. YouGov currently shows that only 5% of 18 to 24-year-olds intend to vote Conservative, compared to 65% of them intending to vote for Labour. Which means that with each passing month, the Tories lose more voters and Labour gain them. And Dylan Difford has come up with some figures. He reckons that if the Conservatives delayed until next January, the latest the election can be held, it would increase Labour's poll lead by a net extra 300,000 people. This is a consequence of support for the Tories collapsing to next to nothing amongst most younger age groups. Voters lost to death are not being replenished for the Tories by younger voters. And obviously, you can't possibly ever get those votes back because, like you can with maybe a disaffected but otherwise breathing voter. In fact, according to Difford's calculations, even the difference between holding the election in May and holding it in October is a net benefit to Labour of an extra 150,000 voters. Now, let's not over-egg the value of this. If that 150,000 was spread equally across Britain, it would be not even quite 250 extra votes for Labour in each constituency. But it still represents a net gain of votes for Labour by delaying, And actually, given that it won't be evenly distributed, if you get more of them in some very tight contests, could easily make the difference. So all things considered, the passage of time is naturally increasing Labour's poll lead a little, and there's a greater chance of problems occurring over the summer than unexpected benefits from the government's point of view. For example, what will be the impact of our new, albeit weak, standards controls on food availability and prices? It's not going to be a positive impact, is it? So you already have a situation where the Tories are likely to do better in May than October anyway. But then add into the mix the notion that a May election, or even a little bit earlier than that, late April maybe, that could trip Labour up, and the idea of a spring election looks more compelling. After all, if the Tories did announce some Labour tax loophole closing measures and use the money to fund tax cuts, then call an immediate election, that would trip Labour up a bit. First of all, Tory MPs won't be able to bellyache about it because once the election's called, they're stuck with Sunak come what may and are forced to unite or fall. Second, Labour will have very little time to come up with alternative arrangements. If the budget announces these tax cuts, but the election is left until autumn, it still poses a problem for Labour's spending plans, but it's a problem where they get like half a year to solve it, instead of just a few weeks. Because once the election is called and the campaign begins proper, Labour will be expected to publish their detailed spending plans fairly quickly. They can't just say, hang on a minute, we're not quite there. That won't look very good. That won't look like they're ready for government. So if the Tories really are intending to blow a hole in Labour's spending plans with their own budget in a few days' time, then they absolutely maximise their advantage by calling the election very shortly afterwards. And although we keep talking about May the 2nd as being a possible date for the election, because that coincides with the local and mayoral elections, there's no reason why Sunak couldn't call the election for mid to late April and really restrict the amount of time Labour have to react to this budget. That being said, because Labour have been expecting this, it's also possible that they have their response well in hand. We'll see. But I don't see how the Tories really gain much advantage in laying traps for Labour in their budget and then giving them 6 or 7 months to overcome them. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.